Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Outer North East Community Committee. My name is Councillor Norma Harrington, and I'll be chairing today's meeting. The Outer North East Community Committee covers all Woodley, Harewood and Wetherby wards, and is a committee where ward councillors have an opportunity to discuss and make decisions about services and priorities for the local area, and also consider funding applications for local community projects and youth activities. I now invite members and officers to introduce themselves. I'll start with Neil.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Neil Buckley, Old Woodley Ward.
Peter.
It's confusing me. Peter Harron, Old Woodley Ward.
Matthew.
Councillor Matthew Robinson, Harewood Ward.
And Ryan.
Good afternoon. Ryan Stevenson, also from Harewood Ward.
Linda.
Good afternoon. I can't get there. Good afternoon. Linda Richards from Wetherby Ward.
And now we'll move on to the officers. Pam.
Pam Johnson, Head of Culture Programmes for Leeds City Council.
Emma.
Emma Beverley, Director of Programmes for Leeds 2023.
Chris.
Chris Ansell, Head of Creative Learning and Engagement at Leeds 2023.
Andrew.
Andy Birkbeck, Localities Programme Manager in the Safer Stronger Communities team.
Thank you. Preet.
Thanks, Chair. Preet Kundi, Localities Officer.
And Gerard.
Gerard Watson, Governance Services Clerk for today's meeting.
Good afternoon, Toby Russell, Governance Officer in Training.
Right, welcome everybody. So, moving to the agenda, item number 1.
Thanks, Chair. To confirm, there's been no appeals received for today's meeting.
Let's just take them through to.
Certainly, Chair. Item 2 is exempt information. There's no exempt information for today. Item 3 is late items of business. There is a late item of business which has been circulated to committee members prior to the meeting, which is the finance report to be taken at agenda item 12, and supplementary information in the form of the presentation document for item 11, which is Leeds 2023 Year of Culture.
Agenda item number 4, apologies for absence.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair. Apologies for absence received from Councillor Lamb, Councillor Cohen.
And then agenda item number 5.
Thank you, Chair. Just invite any declarations of interest from members present, if there are any.
And item number 6 is the open forum.
Sorry, it looks like we have a member to speak on the open forum. Thank you.
Graham Slater, Barrack and Scholes Parish Council. Could I just begin by thanking Leeds City Council Transport Services for the provision of a 14-seater shuttle bus on Jubilee Day. This was used to shuttle residents from Scholes to Barrack, and it was through the efforts of our ward councillors that Transport Services were able to provide this, and it was a tremendous success. Over 400 passenger journeys on the one day. We ran it from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. with a few breaks, but it's something that I feel should be encouraged. This relationship between the parishes and Leeds City, where we can help each other, has got to be a good thing. Looking at the agenda on tonight's meeting, could the Harewood ward councillors confirm if an application has been looked at for some grant funding for Scholes Community Cafe in the Sports Pavilion. This was submitted prior to the earlier meeting and have not been able to find anything that indicates it's been looked at or on an agenda. And the final thing I'd like to ask is, on the agenda, you may cover it later, there's a reference to 2 Jubilee benches for Barwick and Scholes. And as a parish councillor, I certainly don't know anything about these. Do we know what style they are, where they're going to be placed, what inscription they've got, and so forth? So that would be really useful to know. Some of the ward councillors may be aware, we've just installed a new memorial bench today in Scholes, and it's been well received. Thank you, Chair.
Would either of would colleagues like to comment?
I can, if that's all right. Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, thanks to Councillor Slater for his efforts around the Jubilee. It wasn't just ward councillors, it was Councillor Slater who made sure that the shuttle bus was in place. I'm delighted that he's put it on public record so that next time there's a Jubilee, every other parish will want that same shuttle bus. So it'll be even more competitive to get hold of. But clearly it was a worthwhile effort for the community and made a big, big difference. The application was assessed and we were looking at because not all members were there in the ward members meeting to look at it, but we did have a look at this. I think there were some questions around the overall cost, because I think it was about £1,000 for a new phone pole was talked about, and new washing machines in there that were within the project, but it was overall a £250 request. And it was decided, because of the tight nature of the overall wellbeing budget, that we'd look to MICE money when that got reviewed in the new municipal year, which we are now in, to be able to fund that. On the benches, we do know the style and inscription because they're related to the Platinum Jubilee. We haven't been able to agree locations with all parishes because we don't know when they're coming in yet, and we are trying to chase parks to know when they're in so that we can come up with some suitable locations. That a memorial bench was installed today. If the benches don't come sooner rather than later, there won't be Jubilee benches, there will also be memorial benches. So I'm quite keen that we get a date as soon as possible from Parks. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Is that okay, Graham? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to, as there's no other members of the public here to ask any questions, we'll move on to the minutes of the previous meeting, please, to confirm the correct record of the minutes held on the 10th of March 2022. Anybody got any comments? Yes, please. Oh, yes. You propose them. Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Seconder? Somebody to second the minutes? All right, Councillor Stevenson, thank you very much. Matters arising from the minutes? Anybody has any matters arising? Everybody's looking blank. No. Okay, I take it that means there aren't any then. Okay, right. Thank you very much. So we propose now to move the item 11, which is the update on Leeds 2023 Year of Culture, forward on the meeting. So you're going to speak now so that you don't have to sit through the other business that we need to transact afterwards. So it's over to the 2023 Year of Culture team.
Thank you, Chair. Just for committee, just to repeat, my name is Pam Johnson and I'm Head of Culture Programmes for the Council. I've joined the Council in 2019, so I'm going to give you some background on Leeds 2023, but actually it predates my time with the councils. So much of this journey you will know far better than I would. But the journey toward Leeds 2023 began 7 years ago, probably more than 7 years ago, but Executive Board agreed in March 2015 that Leeds City Council would bid to become a 2023 European Capital of Culture. And Leeds was going great guns. It was doing quite well. The bid was very strong. However, by the end of 2017, the European Commission cancelled the competition for UK bidding cities, which left us in a position really as a city to decide with all of the effort, with all of the work and actually the strong public will behind Leeds 2023, where do we go? How do we take this forward? So following a public meeting and subsequently full council, the public meeting was actually supported by 700 members of the public that turned up at Leeds Town Hall. It was determined that we would continue to host our own year of culture, and we would drive towards having a year of cultural celebrations that is all about the city and all of its strengths. Leeds Culture Trust was created as the delivery vehicle for Leeds 2023 with an independent chair, and a board was developed later in 2018. And in 2019, Leeds City Council entered into a grant agreement with Leeds Culture Trust. Now, to start with, that original grant was for just over 12 million, for 12.7 million. However, that had been reduced over recent years through substitutions, for example, from gain share and from business rates pool, whereby the council's net contribution to Leeds 2023 is just over 7.2 million. This is really properly carefully scrutinised in a number of ways through the grant agreement itself, through the scrutiny committee, and through the relatively recently established City Readiness Board, chaired by Martin Farrington, that meets every month to hear about progress that is being made and the potential benefits that are being delivered really across the city. This investment has leveraged funding from elsewhere, from the Arts Council, British Council, National Lottery Heritage Fund, Paul Hamlin Foundation, Esme Fairbairn Foundation, Leeds Community Foundation, Education Partners, and 13 corporate sponsors, which takes the total amount secured to date to 14.1 million. Now, I say to date, actually, I got this presentation a few weeks ago, and actually further progress has been made. I believe it will be announced publicly tomorrow that the National Lottery Heritage Fund has committed an additional 2.1 million, that would be great, 2.1 million to the project. And we're in the process of conversations with the West Yorkshire Combined Authority about a 1.5 million contribution to the project as well. And further fundraising continues with conversations, for example, with the Arts Council about the contribution that they will make to the project. I want to make reference to legacy because I expect the year to be fantastic for the city and for all of our residents concerned. But I really want to talk about culture, not just being about singing and dancing and public art, but actually culture about how we live in the city. It's about the food that we eat, it's about how we live and the the multiplicity of heritage that really exists across Leeds. Leeds 2023 also recognises the culture of sport through the year. We're thinking already about what the legacy of that is going to be. What impact is that going to have in the year? We want it to boost confidence. We want it to build skills. We want it to improve health and well-being. And we're currently working on delivering a plan that will help to shape what that legacy is going to be. Final note from me before I hand over to my colleagues is that you'll all have seen the public announcement about Bradford 2025. And with that announcement, it means across West Yorkshire, all 5 authorities will have a year of culture in some way, shape or form, which means that with Leeds starting that off in 2023, the skills that we develop, the volunteering confidence that we build, the engagement with culture that is created during our year of culture can actually journey across across the region to take part in the different years of culture all the way through to 2025. We want this to be a catalyst for us, as well as delivering a legacy that's going to be meaningful for years to come. At this point, I will hand over to my colleagues at Leeds Culture Trust.
Thank you for that, Pam. So I introduced myself earlier, but just to say I'm Emma, I'm Director of Programmes for Leeds 2023, which means that I'm working on quite a lot of the things that you'll see. And I've been involved in this programme in various ways since 2015 when we were bidding for European Capital of Culture. So I cannot wait to start now. It's only 6 months to go and it feels like we've really picked up some momentum and pace. I just wanted to introduce to you the vision and our mission. So our vision is a thriving city and region where creativity fuels opportunity for everyone. And we really mean that this is about creativity and culture in its broadest form, as Pam explained. And our mission is to deliver a landmark year of culture, connecting and benefiting people now and into the future. So the legacy work that we're planning right now is really integral to the success of Leeds 2023, and we're really thinking that through. We're underpinned by values of diversity, inclusivity and sustainability, and they underpin all of the programming work that we're trying to achieve across the year. So what will Leeds 2023 look like? And we're going to produce major events across the year. You might have heard us speak about 12 signature projects before, and we're creating those so that there's something happening in every ward for everyone. We're going to be developing partnerships and we continue to develop those. We're working with about 80 local partners at the moment. We're working with national organisations and bodies and institutions, and we're working with the world. We're working across about 25 different countries and territories at the moment with that programme. And then we'll promote existing activity within our communities, the city and the wider region. Leeds has got incredible things happening every single day, and we want to really shout about that. We'll share with you some of the projects that are coming up and that we'd really love your support to tell all of the residents about. But I also just wanted to make sure that you could see some of the goals that we're working towards. So we want at least 75% of the city's households to be involved in at least one of the projects that we deliver. We want participation in culture increase from those who face barriers to accessing it currently. We want the opportunity to participate provided to every young person of school age, and we're developing relationships with every school in the city at the moment. And then we really want to increase knowledge of the history and heritage of Leeds and its communities. One of the key things that has come through to us very loud and clear as we've been developing this programme and speaking to as many people as possible about it is that they feel like they want to know more about Leeds and all of the people who live here. I'm going to hand over to Chris now, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the programme that we've been doing so far.
Thanks, Emma. So I'm just going to talk to you about a little bit of the work we've been doing so far out in communities, because while the Year of Culture may not officially start until the 1st of January next year, we've already been doing a lot of work out in each and every single ward. So what have we been doing in Alwoodley, Harewood and Wetherby? Firstly, we've been out in schools. Last year, we commissioned 10 creative practitioners to work with schools to develop some creative learning resources. These were our 10 school seed commissions. So one of the artists that we commissioned was Katie Hewison, who's been working with Wigan Moor Primary on an improvised dance project. And that, alongside the other 9 school seed commissions, is really informing the work that we're doing next year with children and young people across Leeds. When, as Emma said, we hope to create an opportunity, and we will create an opportunity for every school to participate in a creative learning programme. And to inform that, we've also been working with the grammar school at Leeds on the head teachers advisory group. So already out building those relationships, understanding what schools, teachers and head teachers need so that we can produce a programme that is really relevant and accessible to all. We've also been delivering 2 co-creation projects, the first of which is My World, My City, My Neighbourhood, through which we commissioned 23 artists to work with communities out in all of the different wards. So Ali Pidsley and John Wilkerson were working with the Wetherby Young Offenders on a project that's just come to a conclusion. And we've also produced a project called Hidden Stories. Hidden Stories provided an opportunity for heritage organisations to work with a community and a creative practitioner to work in ways that they haven't before, to explore some stories that they may not tell regularly and to really connect with the community who they may not have worked with before. Over at Harewood House, they worked with an artist called Lucy Orter, together they've been exploring food waste and sustainable eating at a local level. And each of those projects are then informing our programming for next year. Am I talking about my Leeds as well? So as I was saying, each of those projects informs one of the signature projects that we are producing next year, which is called My Leeds. My Leeds will be a project that everybody has the opportunity to take part in, and it will take place in all 33 wards. It will be a project that showcases the creativity of our communities by activating a year of cultural celebrations in homes, on streets, in clubs and galas across Leeds. To really help facilitate this and make sure that we're out in every single ward, we're currently recruiting 33 neighbourhood hosts. This is a paid development scheme for one host from each ward. The scheme and role starts in October 2022, and those 33 hosts will be with us through the year of culture until 23. Each host will really become a connector, helping Leeds 2023 to get out into the wards and to connect with communities, but also enabling communities to connect in with us. We want it to be somebody who's already a mover and shaker in their ward, really passionate about their ward and engaging communities, and can help emphasise and enhance what is already there. They'll take part in a training programme, learn new skills so that they continue to do this beyond 2023, and they will also help us develop an event called The Weekender. The Weekender will take place across 2 days in August 2023, where we will animate every ward through neighbourhood events. There'll be 33, or at least 33, hyperlocal events curated and delivered by the neighbourhood hosts. And it will be an opportunity to bring your community together to really celebrate the year of culture in their place. And the really nice thing about this project is we don't know what it will be. We don't know what each of these activations will be until we are working with those neighbourhood hosts and the communities to really understand what communities want. But having already been out there, there's a few hints that what these might be. It might be cookouts, mini community carnivals with a twist, street parties, picnics, whatever it may be. We really want this to be led by each of the communities in your wards. To help facilitate that, we will be delivering a community grants programme where we have a fund that will be distributed through the neighbourhood hosts to enable some events that would not have happened without Leeds 2023 happening next year. We'll also be supporting Leeds City Council's Leeds Inspired programme, which will enable further opportunities for communities and creatives to come together for an event that is really embedded within the city and each of its 33 wards. Alongside that, and as Emma said, there's going to be a huge number of volunteers needed to help us deliver Leeds 2023. I think Pam was referring to the confidence that this will build among those who do volunteers, but volunteers will also have the opportunity to make friends, build networks, develop new skills, develop a greater sense of pride in their place. We're building a team of at least 1,000 volunteers that will support in a number of ways, whether that be day in, day out, or at one event. There really will be something for everybody to get involved in. And we want our pool of volunteers to really represent Leeds and all of its people and help us let culture loose. Beyond that, we also just want to boost cultural volunteering opportunities in your city and in your wards to create a sense of community where everybody wants to volunteer, wants to support their local place. And we hope that that will continue beyond 2023.
So thank you for letting us come and speak to you. We are being cheeky. We do have some asks. We really need your help. We want as many people as possible to help us spread the word about the neighbourhood hosts opportunity. If you know someone who you think would be a great candidate for that, please tell them to get in touch with us and we'll share with you all of the information that you need about the call out. We've been working with some incredible groups already through some of the schemes of work that Chris mentioned earlier, which is all about us piloting and testing. What do people want from this year of culture? How can we make it as relevant as possible to them? And really key to that have been some incredible community organisations. We want to really build on that. We're developing a network of what we're calling anchor organisations across each ward who can also work with those hosts to help really advocate some of the work that they're already doing in that place. We also know that you've got loads of insider tips about your ward. You know a lot about these places that you're part of, and we'd love to learn from you about what you think is really important. We've been delivering a series of road shows. I'm going to share some dates with you in a moment. Please come to those. And if you're happy to as well, just help us spread the word about the Year of Culture. We're really picking up a pace now. We're a company formed in lockdown. We couldn't have a huge amount of public activities happening face to face, but we can now. And we really want more and more people to get involved. These are some of the ones that we've been delivering so far. So we've been in Alwoodley at Allerton Primary School. We've also got a roadshow event coming up on the 30th of June at Wetherby Sports Association, and we are still seeking a venue in Harewood. So if you think that there's a great place that we should be putting on one of the road shows, please let us know. We're helpful for any advice that you've got. Thank you.
I've got a question to start you off. Just about the road shows, really. What are you doing to advertise the road show?
So we've been trying to connect in as much as possible to different Facebook groups, social media groups who might be able to help us spread the word. We have some posters and flyers that we've been dropping off at different locations as well, as people are advising us to. But really, it's the word of mouth that's going to be the most impactful.
Okay, because I'm just concerned that the Wetherby one is this Thursday evening. I live in Wetherby. My colleague lives in Bramham. We have other people who live in Boston Spa, and I haven't seen a single poster anywhere. I've seen a Facebook post for Pudsey, and I think it might have been Temple Newsom, but I'm sure that Sam will correct me if I'm wrong. But there hasn't been one for Wetherby yet. So kind of wondering when you're going to put that out, because we're 3 days away.
I'll check in with our social media team and marketing team on that. Thank you for that feedback. It's really helpful.
Councillor Richards.
Yeah. I do know that the Facebook post, which was based on Wetherby, we actually retweeted and reposted on Facebook so that it would be out there. But I have to say that there has been nothing else, and therefore there's very little take up on it, because whether there has been work done in schools in the area, that needs to be done, because those are your client market, aren't they? And we all have connections with those schools, and I'm sure we'd be happy to use those connections in that way. But I do reiterate, as Councillor Harrington has said, we need to be in there soon.
Councillor Buckley.
Right, Chair, I had one or two questions. I think you were saying that there's a net contribution by Leeds City Council of £7.2 million. And I just wanted to ask about that, because you also said that there are 13 corporate sponsors. And I just wondered how many potential sponsors had been approached. So did we approach 100 and get 13 and that kind of thing? Because, you know, somebody might say to me in Alwoodley, well, why should we pay 7 million? Why can't we raise it all by sponsorship and that kind of thing? That was my first question, particularly given the circumstances we're in at the moment with the public finances and so on. That's question number one. And just the same question, really, the final outcome. So given that £7.2 million is the net contribution now, is that the final outcome, or will it end up being lower than that? Or what will it be? What do we anticipate it will be? You mentioned legacy, and some of these things, you know, some people are quite cynical about these things. They say, oh, well, you know, it's all very nice. We've got some little events, but what actually is the legacy? What can we point to say that this has brought Leeds into the picture more? Who and how is Leeds as a city going to be promoted nationally and internationally on the back of this? Because I don't know whether anybody's ever noticed this, but you put the weather forecast on And I know Leeds is in the middle of the country, and therefore it's difficult to put the sign there. It doesn't exist. We don't exist. We've got Manchester, we've got Hull, we've got Birmingham. Leeds doesn't exist. So how are we going to get Leeds out there? Two final brief points, Chair. Volunteers. Andy will remember we had several conversations about volunteers at the beginning of the COVID situation. How much red tape are they going to be asked to fill in? Are they going to be asked to go online and fill forms in? Or is it just a case of, thank you very much, you're a volunteer, here's a badge? And finally, it just occurred to me that just specifically with All Woodley, on what we now call the Village Green, we have 2 band concerts every summer. One was yesterday, and we'll have one in August. But if there was a host to help us put more on, because it obviously that qualifies as a cultural event, doesn't it? We had about 300 people there yesterday. We would be interested in that kind of thing. Thank you, Chair.
I'll attempt to answer as many of those as I can, and perhaps hand over to Emma to speak about volunteers. How many sponsors have been approached? Actually, I don't know the answer to that. That really sits with the Leeds 2023 fundraising team. Do you have the immediate answer for that?
We've got about 45 at the moment.
Okay, so 45, I'm being told, has been approached, but I can actually find the finite figure for you to give you that overview of that answer. Will the net investment for the council be less than 7.2 million? So we're certainly not settled on that figure. And as investment opportunity arise, we do seize opportunities to kind of make further substitutions. So as of today, as we approach the year, 7.2 million is the net contribution that the council is making. I don't envisage, or I don't know where other substitutions might come from, but our eyes certainly aren't close to them. How will Leeds be promoted nationally and internationally? I absolutely concur. I also look for Leeds on the weather map and rarely see it, though I have a few times more recently. I think Leeds will be promoted, I think, in different ways, and we kind of really measure the increased profile of the city, I think, in different ways. One of those ways could be through the visitor economy. How many more people now recognise Leeds as a centre for culture and are visiting here for the culture? We did undertake a baseline assessment in 2017 that told us that 35% of visitors to Leeds came for the culture. It would be really good for us to really reassess that, to see the impact of, that Leeds 2023 has had, or whether that's increased our cultural profile. I think Emma made reference to the international relationships that we're building, and more cities are looking to build a relationship with us, either as a twin city, as a cultural partner, inviting us to present at numerous international events. So we'll also monitor really our international profile and actually and understand actually just what people understand about the city of Leeds. To do that, though, one of the things that was referenced in the bid book was that we as a city aren't great, or haven't been great, at telling our story. And so we hope that Leeds 2023 will provide us with that boost, and the projects within it, including, and actually for me, most particularly the heritage story that really tells a story of all of Leeds, rather than the perception that Leeds is a city centre and a surrounding area. I think it gives us real potential to talk about the richness of the city through the voice of the people, and that's I think the difference that Leeds 2023 will make. So it's not about a city defined by its statistics or even by its economics, but the voice of people and what they make and what they say about their local area. And we hope that will make a real difference for us in 2023, and one of the legacies that certainly we would want to sustain. I don't know about the volunteers programme. I will hand off to Emma to answer that if she can. Just one more comment about the community host. It's really great that you're beginning to see how a neighbourhood host could support you to boost local activities. I would really ask whether, you know, when that neighbourhood host is appointed, whether we can bring them back to this committee and actually introduce them to you, so that they're connected to you, so that you can actually share information with them. I think it's really important that they are supported, not just by Leeds 2023, but by the city. And I think you can play a really key role, I think, maybe in fostering that neighbourhood host and really supporting them to promote local events, but then also just to be a future leader for culture in your neighbourhood. Could I pass back to Emma to answer the question on volunteers, if you can?
Yeah, one of the things that I failed to mention in the presentation actually is that we're currently putting together a pack for ward members that we can share with you that outlines all of the different opportunities that might exist for residents, and that will have a detailed description of how people get involved in volunteering. There will be some red tape relating to making sure that we know who people are who are volunteering and that we can support them through that process, but we're trying to make it as accessible as possible, and it won't all be digital based. It won't all be online.
And just to conclude, I will return to you with a figure about the sponsors, so you understand that.
Thank you, both of you. There's Sam, did you want to come in now? Yes.
If I can, just one very brief comeback. And on the heritage situation, Alwoodley, as you may know, has a large Jewish community. Probably, well, not probably, the biggest in the city. And I just wonder whether it could be noted that it would be very good if that could be included in the heritage bit.
Councillor Firth.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Pam and the team for coming today to provide the presentation, and apologies for not being here for the very beginning. I was really interested to hear the principles of diversity, inclusivity and sustainability and hyperlocal, because I've had a bit of a sneak peek, because I've been scrutinising this at Scrutiny Board with Cully, your director, among others. And one of the biggest questions I asked to make this hyperlocal was because I represent, along with Ryan and Matthew, the Harewood ward, which is the largest ward in the city by a country mile, and is made up of 10 odd various villages that have very different. 10 different villages. I didn't mean odd. 13 villages, 10 parish councils, and the nature of it is that they're very diverse in terms of what they want to achieve, what they do, and how they actually see themselves within the city of Leeds. Some still reflect that they see themselves more outside of Leeds than actually otherwise, and therefore to include them in Leeds 2023 is going to be certainly a fantastic opportunity to make them feel part of this. And that's the only concern I have. So first question I was going to ask is, I always ask this, what engagement has taken place with parish and town councils to mean that we have a vehicle through which we can actually get the ball moving in sort of the local area? Because the biggest thing about our ward, which is one of the most difficult things for the roadshow, is actually finding a cultural centre to start it, because you have 13 villages that are all very different and also are very spread out across a big area. So how are you going to address that? Or, because we haven't heard anything so far, is there anything you could add on meat on the bone? Thank you, Chair.
Can I just butt in there and also say, for your information, that the outer northeast of Leeds is one of the most heavily parished areas in the city. So Wetherby ward has 6 parish councils. Harewood wards have their 13. Did you say it was, Ryan? Alwoodley, they have 2 parish councils. So Wetherby ward, we've got many towns and villages, but they've all got their own parish councils. So that would be a starting point for it. And they're all used to volunteer in our area, Wetherby. They're all used to volunteering. They do it all the time in a wide range of things that are going on, lots and lots of different community groups and agencies. So I think the parish, when you were saying, Pam, maybe about coming back to tell us about the neighbourhood coordinator or whatever it was, I think it would be an idea to come to the parish council forum, because that would probably be a better venue for that than this meeting, because you would have all the parish councils there and they would be the groups that you'd be wanting to get involved. But if you want to respond to.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, this is one of the reasons why we wanted to come and speak to you, because you can help us work out what the best routes in, because you're absolutely right. Each ward is very different, and we're trying to be as responsive as possible to all of the diversity that exists between the different wards. So that's all incredibly useful information. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. The reason I asked that question is because I've asked that at every meeting at Scrutiny Board with Leeds 2023. And unfortunately, I have received the same answer every time, that we're going to do something about it. I'm not here to say, what are you doing about it? But it is something that I've repeatedly raised and my colleagues have raised, because it is something that they are on the ground, they know their areas, and as a result, it would be really helpful to tap into that ASAP. And the only reason I say that is because the doomsday clock, well, that's the wrong word to say, but the clock is ticking, and with 6 to 7 months going before 2023 begins, we want to make sure that we can hit the ground running, because as you well know, organising the events and the programmes that you're organising across the whole of the city, to organise even one event still takes time to do that. And the reason I also say that is because Harewood ward in particular, as well as the Wetherby and the Old Woodley wards, have organisations or charities involved. For example, this year with the Jubilee has seen the restart of many galas across each of the villages after COVID, from Scholes to the Maypole Festival in Barwick to Thorner and beyond. And then also at the same time, big institutions like the Victory Hall in Thorner, which hold the Comedy Festival, which has a lot of big names, before they also have the Leeds Festival, which is part of the agreement that they have. You have other things in terms of Shadwell Library, which provides major events, cultural and heritage events for the whole of particularly Shadwell and reaching into the Old Woodley ward. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because if we can get the ball rolling, we are working with those individuals already. That will certainly help proliferate organising more events. And because of the fact we want to make sure it's hyperlocal in a ward and in an area that is so diverse and so stretched out geographically, that we can actually make sure that they feel that they're part of Leeds. I just wanted to ask one final question, which is, has anything further been done about the Twin Cities, because of the fact that, for example, at the investiture of the new Lord Mayor, the Mayor of Zeegan, Stephen Merce, was here, and as a result, I just wondered what's been done to try and expand that, or even potentially just get them involved in some way to certainly put us on the international map and see if they can be involved in any way, shape and form. Thank you, Chair.
So in terms of the Twin Cities, we've been working with the international team at Leeds City Council to make sure that we're really reaching into that network. We have strong partnerships already with the team over at Lille, and particularly with Lille 3000. We also have a programme with Dortmund that we're building at the moment. There are other opportunities as well that we're working through at the minute with different Twin Cities that we have relationships with.
Thank you. There are some of the villages also have twinning associations as well, so that would come out of the parish council meetings. So I next had Councillor Stevenson and then Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. On my way here today, I did a lesson observation in a comprehensive secondary school. It's in a deprived part of the city, and they were doing forensic reading on English language. And as I was sat here, I was just thinking back to my English language lessons, and I think it was Thomas Wolfe, I think, who wrote that culture is the art elevated to a set of beliefs. And when I'm just looking through the events that have happened so far in our area, and I see that we've had an improvised dance session, a discussion with the head of the £15,000 a year fee-paying school, and a discussion around food waste and sustainable eating with the 8th Earl of Harewood. So I wonder, to whose set of beliefs are we being guided?
Thank you. And I can't say anything other than I agree. What I can also say is that those that selection of activities are not representative of actually the projects that we have been delivering across Leeds. I think it is just unfortunate that on this occasion that we're bringing these 3 projects together. They do perhaps only reach a small proportion of that community, and it's a very specific demographic. As I say, the work that we've been doing across Leeds, that's not actually reflective of. We are already working with organisations across the third and public sectors to make sure that we reach a hugely diverse range of people and audiences, including people from different social economic backgrounds, people from all ethnicities, all ages. So we are making sure that cost and is not a barrier to participation, and that we can really break down other barriers to participation that may mean that people wouldn't necessarily or historically haven't engaged in culture in this way because, as you say, of definitions like that. So they can't provide much more than that at the moment, other than to assure you and give you confidence that we will be looking to work with people from all social economic backgrounds.
I just have one comment and then a final question, Chair, then. I'm sure nobody will ever quote me in future, but I was just thinking that culture is in many ways a bit, thankfully, like beauty in the eye of the beholder, and it is important that you capture what people think is culture in different, not just social demographic groups, but also areas of the city. And so if you were looking towards the Harewood area and the outer northeast, I'd be thinking of things such as myself and my two colleagues are technically the councillors for Emmerdale Village, which is celebrating its 50th year this year, and has a huge influence in certain parts of our wards in terms of funding, and is well recognised. We have the Harewood Hill Climb, which is a partly classic car rally, but also sort of soapbox rally in our area, which is a venue that's very much underused in our area. In terms of other entertainment venues, my colleagues in Wetherby have the Engine Shed. We have the Bramham Horse Trials, which has just happened in Bramham, and my colleague, Councillor Linda Richards, I'm sure she'd tell you, is governor of a secondary school which has a huge rowing competition going on in the city, and I think that alone would express how wide culture can be, and it is important that we capture everybody's different interpretation of culture rather than a single set of beliefs. And so my final question, which I'm going to take the opportunity to have two, Chair, which is, first of all, on the host that's going to be a paid role, how much is that salary? And in terms of legacy, are we going to have something at the end of this that's a physical building or such that we can point to, where, you know, I know countries that have won Eurovision in the past have built a new stadium to host the Eurovision, and I think of the Olympics that have happened, and they've I think Sydney Olympics are a nice stadium we can point to. Is there going to be something that in 10 years' time, when the children in the English literature class I visited this morning look back, are they going to say that happened because 10 years ago Leeds was a city of culture?
I'm going to start with the easy one. So the what will exist in 10 years' time? We hope, and we're working, that one of the legacies of Leeds 2023 will be a national centre for poetry, led or driven by the vision of Simon Armitage, who is the Poet Laureate. He wants to make that part of his vision as Poet Laureate, but also part of the legacy of Leeds 2023. And what's beautiful actually about focusing this around poetry is it speaks more broadly to literature, it speaks to the languages of the city. It also brings in contemporary poetry in the different ways that schools and young people are really interpreting and understanding what poetry is. So that, we hope, will be one of the legacies of Leeds 2023. There are things that we can say are our legacy. You know, the fact that we announced 7 years ago that, we started this journey 7 years ago, and we announced that we will deliver this year anyway. It's not measurable, but I think that confidence actually speaks, I think, more broadly to the country. I'd like to count Channel 4 deciding to relocate here as part of that legacy. I'd like to count British Library North establishing their base here as part of that legacy. I think some parts of the legacy are going to be tangible and some not. But I think the way that we speak of the city and actually our decision to go forward with Leeds 2023 is already paying dividends on what that legacy is going to be, dare I say.
Thank you, Pam. You want to say something?
I just wanted to pick up on some of the other points that you raised. I'm having a series of fantastic conversations with ITV at the moment about Emmerdale's 50th anniversary, because that's a great opportunity for us to reach a whole range of people and tell them about the year of culture. I also just want to pick up on the point about the weather map, actually, in terms of tangible legacy, because Hull went on the weather map because it was Hull City of Culture 2017. So, there are some really great examples, actually, of both the kind of the great examples of legacy when it comes to buildings and stadiums that we can draw from, but there are also those really influential ones that actually are more surprising too, and they're elements of the tangible legacy that I'm looking forward to. The host is a paid position. It's paid real living wage. It starts off on a certain amount of days per week and builds as we go towards delivery in the year. And then I just wanted to reflect just a little bit on some of the projects that we've shared with you, because your feedback's very helpful. And I think it's also due to our unfortunate wording in the presentation. So by improvised dance, what we mean is how can we use movement as a way for children to express themselves and for teachers to teach. We're also connecting that school with a school in Germany to think about how you facilitate international exchange at a school level, and the learning from that will inform how we build the school's programme from that point of view. I also just wanted to connect in on the Harewood House project, because one of the reasons why we wanted to work with Harewood was because they came to us to say, we want to build better relationships and connections to communities who aren't currently using our spaces and our facilities. And this project is entirely looking at food as a way to connect with people who might not usually see certain heritage institutions and locations as theirs. So I did just want to go back on that point too, to say I don't think we've done very good service to explain the detail of some of those projects.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor Robinson, you had your hand up.
Thanks, Chair. I have neither the eloquence or the verbosity of my two ward colleagues, but I'm very simple. I'm a simple guy. It's a pint and football for me. That's culture, which is funny because we have the oldest pub in Britain in our ward as well, which is something to connect with. In the earlier part of the report, you mentioned about the Leeds gain share allocation. Presumably that gain share allocation is coming from the combined authority. So is the 1.5 million that we are going back to the combined authority to ask for in addition to the existing amount? And there may be a couple of follow-ups as well, Chair.
It is, yes.
And how much is it already?
I'm getting good because that's culture. I can say it without my lips moving.
So I do have that figure. I don't have it to hand, so I will follow up with an answer to that.
I think that would be useful to know, because as far as I've seen allocations, and I'm on the combined authority, gain share has not been split by city or local authority. If that's a new arrangement that the combined authority is making, I'd be very interested to see where that's going. Additionally, you heard earlier in the meeting about free transport connecting to the Maypole Festival, and that being incredibly important to make sure that people could go to access local festivals, local events, and actually connect with different communities together. The Mayor is very keen on free buses. Has there been a discussion about free bus travel during the festival, and how far has that gone, and will it connect all of Leeds?
I can report really positive conversations with bus companies, transport companies across the region, Arriva being one of those examples, where we're actually negotiating a support package that will actually give access to people from the furthest reaches of the city, really to any of the events. So those conversations are currently happening now, and we're very confident that there will be a package of support that comes as sponsorship from the transport companies.
And that's positive news. Hopefully when there's more information, it can be shared through the community committee, and we could have a look at that as I think there's nods going around all my colleagues here. We're particularly poorly served by public transport in many instances. And if people aren't able to get to these events, then, or they don't see an option of getting to these events, they're just not even going to try to go to these events, which would be a great shame as well. One final question, if that's okay, Chair, if you'll indulge me. Eurovision was mentioned as well. It would be remiss of me, given that the executive board have made such a big play on bidding for Eurovision, to understand how that is progressing at this stage, and if any of the funding allocation has been meted towards the bid for Eurovision, or if we'll be using separate funds for that.
I can say with confidence that Eurovision is beyond my purview, but very confident conversations are happening. Leeds, I believe, is bidding quite confidently, not just because we want the competition here, but also in recognising that Leeds has the largest Ukrainian community in the country outside of Ukraine, and we want to celebrate that and connect with that community.
It's not quite the answer to the question. It was the question was about funding, and if funding's been allocated towards that from your existing pot. Because I imagine, to Councillor Buckley's point, if you get Eurovision, you can leverage in a lot more sponsorship cash, but presumably seed funding would be needed from a budget from somewhere.
So funding hasn't been allocated from the Leeds 2023 fund for our Eurovision aspirations, and it's partly because actually the funding for Leeds 2023 is managed through a grant agreement with an external body, and that external body is Leeds Culture Trust. So if we are driving forward our ambition to host Eurovision, then we need to look really within the council or other sources of support, I think, to realise that. It's a beautifully sponsorable event, and I absolutely agree it would lever significant amounts of investment and the profile that we talked about really to the city.
Okay, I have Councillor Firth a quick question, because you've asked several, and Councillor Hart, you want to ask one as well, Councillor Harrod, and then Councillor Richards. Oh, sorry, Neil. Yes, I've got you.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, it's my turn. Sorry, Councillor Harrod. Quick question. Further thing I would also say is that talking about the Bingley Arms, it's one of the oldest pubs in the city. Oldest in, apologies, because that actually defines it. William Congreve, who used to live around the corner, obviously is one of the most famous restoration playwrights from the 1600s. Anyway, moving on. My world, my city, my neighbourhood. This was a big question I asked at Scrutiny Board. There was 23 instead of 33 wards. Can I ask, as a result, what plans going forward to be able to ensure that the Harewood, Wetherby and the Old Woodley wards can be involved in any programmes going forward? What programmes are expected in the next 6 months to really promote it further to the programme of events in the community? And is there anything else coming forward like that? Thank you very much.
So just to clarify, My World, My City, My Neighbourhood was 23 projects. You're absolutely right. Hidden Stories was the additional 10. So we did do 33 in total. We also are the My Leeds 2023 project that we covered with you earlier is that next stage of those two programmes of work. And that's what people will be able to really get involved with over the next 6 months.
Councillor Harrod and then Councillor Buckley.
Thank you. I just support the case for having some more information about Gainshare, please. As a local authority source of finance, it's a mystery and a brand new concept which has no relevance to anything that's gone before, and I honestly don't believe in it. I was disappointed you said we'd not been great at telling our story in the past. That's 180 degrees different what I've been told for the last 20 years. We've always told each other how clever we've been. I hope you're not saying that to too many people. You're likely to get offend a lot of people. We have been good at selling the city in the past, and it would be unfortunate if you said that to anybody else, I assure you. A specific question, you said about community grants. Are you going to involve us in deciding where those grants go? A community grants programme, well, will we be invited to comment on recommendations?
If I can take the first one about telling our story, I merely quoted from the bid book, which basically stated that we're not great. The city hasn't been great at telling its story. And I think what it means by
Telling us
that
for 25 years. No.
Predates me, which is an easy thing to say, but that bid book predates me. So I can't add much more to that, really.
We'll pass that back to the people who feel they've been reasonably good at that for 25 years.
On
Again,
the-
Shane, don't come to tell me about the community grants.
Yeah, so the community grants programme is going to be co-designed with the neighbourhood hosts. We work with them to design how it's delivered. It's co-created and it's funded by the Paul Hamlin Foundation, which is one of the terms of their relationship with us. It's completely independent of. I can't say that right now because the idea is that we recruit those hosts and we know how they want to work and how they want to approach it before we make any decisions about how it's then delivered. So because it's co-created from the beginning, it would feel difficult to start putting in place different ways in which that might be modelled already. We're also working with different partners who deliver community grants programs in a co-created way to learn how they've initially started off that design and delivery process. There's some great examples we can draw from nationally.
From my colleagues, I think we'd like to be involved at least as consultees. If you're going to spend money in our wards, I think we'd like to have express our opinion before it becomes final. Comment?
I think Councillor Howard, I don't think that that's actually within Emma's remit, but maybe you could pass the information back and then see if we could get a comment that we can give to colleagues. I share the same, but I have on my note a bit about the governance of the grants, and that would concern me because you've spoken about recruit. Sorry, I'm interrupted because I was going to come to Neil next, but I think there's we're talking about recruiting a neighbourhood host, but what are the qualifications that are going to be required for that? What experience are they going to have to actually undertake that role? And then what kind of experience have they got in looking at funding and things? We have vast experience around this table of looking at grant funding and how we can actually provide money for groups within our communities. And so it just seems a little bit, if it's the Paul Hamlin organisation that are going to be taking the decisions because they're funding it, well, that's absolutely fine. But I think if it's anything else, I want to know who this person is, what experience they've got, what qualifications they've got, and then you can say, right, okay, well, how can we build that into what we're talking to? Thank you.
So just to respond to some of the questions that you've asked around who the people are. So it's a training program, and we're this autumn developing a training program that's entirely about giving them the skills needed to make those types of decisions and to understand. So we'll be bringing in experts from all sorts of different funding backgrounds that they can meet and ask questions of and provide mentorship to. When I say that it's designed with the community host, the governance of it is with Leeds Culture Trust, and we have a grant making policy. So it's completely governed and scrutinised through that grant making policy as an independent trust. It's not existing in isolation. And of course, what we wouldn't want to do is develop a programme that isn't in dialogue with existing infrastructure. So that's one of the reasons why we're also thinking about how can we make the most out of the Leeds Inspired Grants programme that the council already deliver, really conscious of all the great work that's happening with different grants that are already made in these different wards. We want it to be complementary to that. It's not something that should be completely in isolation.
Councillor Buckley.
Just a question specifically on this hosts, these neighbourhood hosts. Woodley Parish Council put on these band concerts and one or two other things. But what they find really, really burdensome is that if it's anything other than a tiny little event, there has to be a named person, as you know, and that person takes responsibility for anything. And people say, well, I'm not prepared to do it. And it just is a real headache. Would the host be able to be the named person so we could rid ourselves of all that?
I can empathise with that situation. It really depends on the nature of the event, but for the programmes of work that we'll be delivering, those hosts will be fully supported by the infrastructure of Leeds 2023. So we have a production team, for example, who can take on health and safety responsibilities, risk assessment responsibilities, and can make sure that that person is supported. So I don't think it's likely that the host individually would become a named person on different events that are happening, but there are definitely other arrangements that could be made to support those events and activities that are taking place as part of My Leeds 2023.
Yes, but somebody has still got to be a named person then.
So what I'm saying is for activities that are delivered as part of Leeds 2023, that named person is likely to be someone who's within the staff team. So whether that's a member of the production team or the producing team or otherwise, if that makes sense, because we'll have health and safety people within the organisation, for example.
And Councillor Richards.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering about these hyper-local events. Given the fact that it's already become apparent that the geographical extent of, say, Harewood and the diversity of, say, Aldley, as opposed to Wetherby itself, which has quite nucleated settlements within the villages area, but they in turn are very separate and very different entities from Wetherby town. I'm wondering how those kind of hyperlocal events will be decided upon, who will make that decision. And they've already had a difficulty with Harewood, as we've said. So does that link with the hosts being allocated? Does it link with the, determining of what that particular nature of the area might bring about?
The short answer is yes. So as Emma alluded to, the host will initially go through a rigorous training program. And just back to your point about qualifications, it may be that actually they currently don't have any formal qualifications, but this really provides an opportunity for people to learn new skills. And some of that is likely to be how actually to go out and engage with communities and to understand what that community needs. Through that process and through their consultation engagement with their communities, they will decide what those hyperlocal event looks like. So I mentioned in the presentation that it will be at least 33 events for My Leeds, because there are at least 33 wards. However, it might be, as you say, for Harewood, which is quite geographically disparate, that might be 5, within that very ward, or 10, or however many it may be. Equally, if there's difference across culture and interests and other variations as well, that means that they can split out that one event, so to speak, into 5 or 6 smaller things that perhaps all come together, or it may actually be an opportunity to bring a lot of people together. Obviously, geography is a bit more difficult to overcome, but that may be an opportunity. So yes, it will kind of sit with the hosts as a way to come back to us and say what actually that community and those communities in that ward, what would most benefit them.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I agree entirely, but it does come back to what's been said several times already about communication with those who are on the ground, so to speak. So we are talking about real localized communication, and fairly quickly as well, because we obviously can see, as has been said by Councillor Firth, time is running and we need to get that in there. Otherwise, those decisions will then have to be taken too much on the hoof, too much without information. And I would really encourage, as soon as you can, to actually get that information almost before the hosts themselves maybe have been appointed, because if we are talking a later appointment in the autumn, that's not very much time to do that. Okay.
Councillor Stevenson, final question.
It was actually, I was going to move the recommendation with 2 amendments, Chair, if you've not got any more.
2 amendments.
So if I'm allowed, I would move the recommendation and add 2 amendments, which is the first, recognising that the Harewood ward geographically is an 1/8 of the city, that we write to the relevant director and ask that the Harewood ward is granted 2 hosts to account for that issue. I think when you're dealing with a £14 million budget, the real living wage shouldn't be too much of a stretch for Harewood. And the second recommendation would be on the basis that we've just heard that other partner organisations are dictating the terms of the grants. As Leeds City Council, which as a corporate body is a council, but democratically is us, as we are stumping up half of this, the recommendation would be to also write to the director and relevant executive member to ask that if everywhere else in the city is happy, it's up to them. But for our 3 wards, we are involved in the recruitment process of said hosts. I think if we're stumping up, if our taxpayers in our ward are stumping up the cost, then as their directly elected representatives, we should be involved in the recruitment process of who they are, in the same way as I sit on the employment committee for children and families. My colleagues sit on the relevant authorities. So I'll move the recommendation with those 2 amendments, Chair.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I did say at the pre-meeting that there would be lots of questions, and they did not disappoint. I know it is. I know. I did try to explain that as well. So you are, of course, free to stay if you wish to, but I'm sure that you've got things that you would rather be getting on with.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So returning to the normal part of the agenda, and I do understand, Councillor Harron, that you have to leave. So thank you very much. So where do we go up to?
Item 9, Chair.
Item 9, Community Committee Champions Role Profile. Preet.
Thanks, Chair. The champion's role is just to be noted, and it's work that will be taking place throughout the year, just to put some more meat on the bones. So it's just more in terms of information for the councillors.
The issue was discussed at Community Chairs Forum, because there was some feeling going back some time, Andy might have been at a meeting, that there was people were being asked to be champions, but they didn't really know what a champion's role was. And that sometimes the champions hadn't been called together to actually have a meeting. And so some of the exec board members were quite keen to get that process going again. So that's the point of this role brief, that at least if there's a new councillor that comes on that's going to be given a role, they're going to understand what it is. Okay, any questions? Sorry, item 10 is the Community Committee appointments for 2022-23. I ask Gerard to briefly introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is a report that comes annually, June, July every year. Twofold. It invites the committee to note the fact that yourself, Councillor Harrington, was appointed chair for 22-23 at the annual meeting in May. It also invites the committee to review appointments previously made to the outside bodies, champions roles we've just discussed, local care partnerships, housing advisory panels, clusters and corporate parenting board. And the details of the current incumbents can be found in paragraph 6 in the report. Members are asked to review those names there and whether they're happy with the current names or want to make any changes for the forthcoming year. Thanks.
Comments? Councillor Robinson.
I'm a champion for environment and community safety. In light of Councillor Richards chairing the subcommittee, environment and community safety would seem a very logical one to be with Councillor Richards if people are in agreement. And on employment skills and welfare, I'm mindful of what you've said, Chair. I'm not sure that champion role has met in, I think Theresa May might have been Prime Minister when that last met. So I'm yeah, she's lost her employment.
Skills.
But I'm not precious about it if somebody else wishes to take on that that champion role at this stage.
So Councillor Firth is volunteering to take on that role. Yeah, everybody happy with that? Yes, right. You're not, but we will be. Okay. So Councillor Richards is going to be the Environment and Community Safety. Okay. So looking at the other ones, is everybody else content to stay where they were? I haven't had anybody come to me and say, no, I'm not going to do it, Norma. So happy? Okay. Thank you very much. So item number 12, Outer North East Community Committee Finance Report. Preet, would you like to just bullet points if there's something major that you want to discuss, and then questions from councillors? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just in the finance report, there are a number of applications that need approving, but I will do those in block per ward. So for all Woodley Ward, from paragraph 21 to 24, do we approve and agree? Shall I take that?
Peter's gone.
Yes, 21. 21, 22. 23, that's a huge one. Yep, 24, yep. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. I'm going to skip over to Wetherby Ward, paragraphs 30 to 36. That also includes the joint projects with Harewood.
Councillor Richards.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of Harewood, we shall be taking a slightly different approach. We're just going to defer the projects and then have a separate meeting to discuss further.
I agree entirely with Preet, but I've got my sharp pencil out and I've been doing some maths earlier. And in light of the two joint funded projects with the police, there's a risk that they could fall behind and not allow Wetherby to move ahead. On that basis, I think there is enough overhead in the budget for us to agree tonight to fund those two joint projects, but the standalone ones we take elsewhere, if committees are in agreement with that.
That would be really helpful as far as moving Wetherby, and we have a meeting shortly, don't we, with the police? Okay. So everybody happy to go on that basis? Yep. Okay, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair. Then finally, if I could just ask you to have a look at paragraphs 42 to 50. These are the youth activity projects. Again, they cover Wetherby and Woodley. Brilliant, thank you. All for the finance report, Chair.
Thank you, Preet. So agenda item number 13 is the Outer North East Community Committee update. And I'd invite Preet to present the report for this item. You have all had it. If there's any major points that you want to point out, Preet.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the first one that I'd like to point out is we sort of just looked at the appointments for the champions. I just want to get confirmation for the current non-appointees for the environmental subgroup, which is Councillor Firth, Councillor Buckley and Councillor Richards, with Councillor Richards being the chair for the subgroup. Thank you. The next thing I would just like to move on to the youth activity. We've got a number of youth activity projects taking place over summer, such as Mini Breeze, the Rhinos, the Harewood Platinum Games. And I would just like to ask the councillors if they would help in promoting those projects that are taking place. The next thing I'd like to move on is the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. The councillors funded and attended a number of projects and events over the weekend, the 4-day weekend. And I would just like to invite the councillors if they want to just say a few words in regards to what took place in their ward.
First one. Yeah. We had a very enjoyable 4 days in Harewood Ward. We visited nearly between us, along with our Member of Parliament, nearly every village and parish that hosted an event. We've already heard from Councillor Slater earlier, the events in Barrack and Scholes, which were fantastically well attended. And we also had the sun with us, which helped. But from our point, I think we'd just like to say, although we managed to secure some funding to assist along the way, the real effort went in by, as ever, a handful of local people. And we really appreciate their efforts in helping us get together after what was has been a difficult few years. It's great to see the villages booming again as we all came together to mark the 70 years of our fabulous and gracious Queen.
Do you want to say anything from All Woodley, Neil?
The only thing is a slight negative, actually, because for various reasons, which I won't bore you with, we didn't have a parish council Jubilee event. It was in planning, and it's not for this committee to be interested in it, but we didn't do it.
It's a shame. Councillor Firth, you wanted to add something?
I just think in light of the discussion about Leeds 2023, I think it's absolutely paramount that those amount of volunteers across the 13 villages in the Harewood Ward and further afield who not only just organised one event, but in some villages, as mentioned in Barrack and Scholes, Thorner, etc., organise an event nearly every day of the bank holiday weekend. And I think it's really critical that we tap in to that real fervour to represent their villages and to keep people together as we hopefully keep emerging from the pandemic. Thank you, Chair.
Do you want me to feedback or?
Yeah, I'd certainly like to say something because I'd like to reiterate exactly what Councillor first said. The level of resident involvement was huge, it has to be said. Certainly your comment about several events happening on several occasions. My biggest difficulty was trying to get round them all, to be perfectly honest. Ranging from villages festooned with scarecrows. I mean, 40 odd scarecrows in one village is really going some. And then the, obviously set piece ones of the Wetherby concert on the last Saturday, which, could be seen from far and wide with the fireworks. But just the fact that you had nearly 2,000 people there was an indication of the commitment that had been made by those who organised it. Then you had, as you say, lots of galas. Every village had some communal event, whether it was the beacon, whether it was the actual markets, whether it was the galas. So I would agree with you entirely. We need to build on that, and then it needs to be built on very quickly, because people did enjoy that coming together and they did enjoy what it actually brought about. So it shows the strength of the diversity of our communities. Thank you.
And I'd just like to say, as chair of this community committee, that the number of volunteers who were involved across the whole area was absolutely phenomenal. And I know from Wetherby's perspective, as Wetherby Town, they started the planning over 2 years ago for the VE Day celebrations, and they were able to just shunt all of that forward to the Queen's Jubilee, but they also added further sessions. So for the 4 days, there was something going on every single day in the town and the surroundings. And as Councillor Richards has said, it was extremely difficult to get around every single event that was going on in the Wetherby ward. And I'm sure there are 1 or 2 that we missed. And if we did, we're really, really sorry, but we did try our best. But it was a great effort. It was just amazing to see so many people, so many villages festooned with flags. Wherever we drove in the outer northeast, it was just amazing. So thank you to all of those volunteers.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks to all the councillors for that input. I'd like to invite the chair just to say a few words in regards to Wetherby in support of the elderly who were given the UK's highest voluntary honour. So I'm just going to ask if Councillor Harrington would like to say a few words. Thank you.
Yeah, I've particularly proud to be able to speak on behalf of my fellow trustees on WISE, Wetherby in Support of the Elderly. It's an organisation that's been running for over 15 years, was started up by a couple of guys from the Rotary Club, and now has over 150 volunteers ranging across all the different groups that they run. So the Queen's Award has absolutely ratified all of the hopes and all the dreams that we had for the organisation, and the number of volunteers that are involved in that. The spring in their step over the last couple of weeks has been absolutely amazing. And every event that I've been to, and they're all saying, "Oh, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? And when are we having the party?" So there will be a large celebration, because the Lord Lieutenant is actually coming to present the award. I'm sure that the Lord Mayor of Leeds will receive an invite to come as well, and I'm sure Bob will do his utmost to be there if he possibly can, and we will invite many sponsors and many funders and many people that have supported us over the years. But we are extremely proud, and it's all down to the volunteers in Wetherby. So thank you very much. Thank you. Is that you?
Thanks, Chair. That's all I've got to say in terms of the update report. Thank you.
Got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. At a previous meeting that we had at the area, we had the Leeds plan update come to this committee. I sit on the scrutiny board for strategy and resources, and it came there very recently. There was no progress on any of the feedback that we had made quite excessively at that meeting about parish and town councils being involved in the discussion and engaging the wider community of the outer northeast, despite the fact that it effectively covers a third of the geographic area of Leeds, if not slightly less. I have serious concern about the fact that this council does not respect the geography of our area if it isn't going to engage, having come to engage with us and then taken none of the feedback. And I just wondered whether it might be prominent from us as a committee to feed that back through the committee to those who are deciding and pulling forward the Leeds plan, because the only answer I got was, well, when it's done now, we will then go and engage with them. Whereas as part of the roadshow, they came round and we made it absolutely clear that they needed to respect that. And I just wonder whether that was something that the committee may wish to take forward in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments? Councillor Robinson.
Thanks, Chair. Three quick ones, if that's okay. What on page 42, there's next town and parish council forum. There is talk of the team leader for cleaner neighbourhoods attending. I'm guessing they're not going to be attending that, which goes to the heart of some of the issues that have been discussed at the environment subcommittee about bits of work going on in the area. Hopefully a substitute will be attending, but I'm looking at Craig.
Yes, at the time of when the report was written, the team leader was planning to attend. In light of what's happened, I will be looking towards the area manager to attend on her behalf.
Perfect. I think that would be a good step forward. The second is on page 59, we have our COVID-19 Facebook groups, of which, adding them up, about 200 people are part of all three of them, assuming the 200 individuals as well. I'm presuming we're at a stage where those groups can be closed down now, and communication can be made through another avenue.
I think that's probably a fair comment. I'll take that back to my leadership team.
Can't they be formed into like the pale groups?
Well, they could be the monkeypox group, I suppose, but it's just. Yeah, I think closing them down is probably easier.
Yeah, I'll take that back.
Thanks. And
sorry, apologies. Just take the word COVID out, whatever you do.
Third point, Chair, is related to page 39, which is our Leeds Festival Working Group. It would be remiss of me to not comment on it, as progress has been made, but I think it's worth noting for members of this committee that not all the things that we have indicated, asked for or suggested have been taken forward. That isn't for officers of this committee to be mindful of, but I'm putting that flag down now, as we know, and I know, Chair, you and I have suggested various bits that would help make improvements in the villages. Leeds Festival have shown willing, and Leeds City Council's licensing and other departments have shown willing, and some progress has been made. But I think there's some concerns from myself that there could still be problems going forward, and we need to keep a strong watching brief on this and be mindful of what will happen and how this information is communicated to residents as well. Thanks, Chair.
Just on the point about that meeting, I think it has been particularly helpful for the parish councils to come and come along to those meetings and put their points. And I know that Leeds Fest actually organised a session where each of the parish council could go along and raise points at Bramham. And they had a slot where they could actually speak just that one parish council to the Leeds Fest organisers. So as you say, I think the Leeds Fest organisers have got a will to do everything they possibly can to make life easier for those living in the villages. But we do need to keep an eye on it. Thank you. That was, okay. So item number 14 is the Outer North East Community Committee Youth Fund Activities Consultation Report. So Preet, could you please give the highlights of that?
Thank you, Chair. Just the main point that I want to raise, because I won't go through it word by word, is just that myself will be consulting with the councillors in regards to the 23-24 budget. So I'll be asking them how they want to consult with young people in regards to next year's budget, if they want a physical use summit and engage with all the schools, or if they want to do what they've done in the past over the last couple of years and have an online survey to consult, or if they want to use their own methods or maybe have a hybrid.
Any questions from councillors?
As a children's champion, I think I'll just say I think we've got school councils on all 8 of our primary schools, and it would make sense that those were asked as a first junior tier of local government for their views on behalf of the young people that they represent. That would do us finely, I think.
Thanks, councillor.
So no other questions for Preet? No. Okay, well, that concludes the business for today's meeting. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a safe journey home. Thank you.